but in reality,
Good evening. Call to order the Novi Board of Education regular meeting of March 3rd, 2023. Welcome, everybody. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
Ready?
Yes.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
I'm not used to just being pointed at.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood, supported by Mrs. Roney. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 6-0. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Tonight, we have a special recognition. So, Mrs. Brown, if I could ask you to take a seat for just a moment. And I would like to introduce Wendy Zadeb, who is the Executive Director of MASSP.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Matthews, members of the Novi Board of Education and Novi School community in attendance at the meeting today. My name is Wendy Zadeb. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. And I'm excited to be with you this evening as I have the opportunity to share some amazing news with you today. The Novi High School principal, Nicole Carter, has been selected as Michigan's 2022 Principal of the Year.
Ms. Carter, if you could stand by Mrs. Zadeb, that would be wonderful.
This is one of my favorite responsibilities as Executive Director, as this award is our top recognition of excellence in principal leadership. The pandemic has been the most challenging time in the history of modern education. It has put many principals in the middle of very difficult situations. Enforcing masking policies, finding ways to implement food service and mental health support while students were remote, ensuring a high-quality education is delivered under circumstances we've never experienced. Through all of this, the best of the best rise to the top, or emerge, as Nicole would say. And the best of the best is Nicole Carter. MASSP's selection process for Principal of the Year is pretty unique. There are two panels that evaluate the nominees. We have a panel of principals statewide, and then a panel of student leaders who ultimately make the decision. It's a high honor to be recognized by both principal colleagues and students statewide as the best. There were many letters of support in the packet submitted by Novi High School Executive Board President Raheen Kadir, a senior at Novi High School, and I'd like to share a few quotes from Raheen's letter. Mrs. Carter, our principal, is an admirable example of leadership at Novi High School. Her unwavering dedication to the improvement of our institution is unrivaled. Our committed principal embodies tenacity and perseverance. She puts her heart and soul into her work. She works tirelessly to enhance the interaction between students and faculty, but also to bring the entire school community together. Without her help, we wouldn't be able to embody the leadership that we are today and be motivated to make the difference we've been able to make. Without her leadership and guidance, we would never have the chance to do what we do now. She encourages us to make a positive difference in our school culture and provides us with the tools we need to do so. Simply put, she exemplifies exactly what a principal should be. I'd also like to share a few quotes from Danielle Crossley, Novi High School Senior Class Student Council Advisor. Nicole genuinely cares about the experiences of our students and staff and strives to make them feel safe and validated. She pours her heart and soul into Novi High School, and she deserves to be recognized for all she does to make our staff and students feel welcomed and appreciated each day. In the numerous letters of support, the same exact words were frequently mentioned to describe Nicole Carter. Passionate, strong, innovative, empathetic, respected, a listener, and imaginative. All 23 years of Nicole's career in education have been in Novi, with 15 years as an administrator. This fact in itself is an anomaly in today's education landscape. Nicole is so fortunate to have this, Novi is so fortunate to have this fearless trailblazer leading Novi High School. As an association, we could not be more proud to recognize and announce Nicole Carter as the 2022 Michigan Principal of the Year. Now, people, this is a big deal. Nicole will travel to Washington, D.C. to represent the state of Michigan and compete alongside all of the principals from every other state in the nation who have been announced as their state's Principal of the Year. She'll be recognized at our state conference in front of the entire membership at the end of June, and will be presented with a special Principal of the Year fancy ring from Justin's. I know that all of you will join me in congratulating Nicole on this outstanding achievement. And because we know that student voice is so important, I wanted to make sure that we gave Nicole's nominator, Raheen, the opportunity to make a few additional comments as well.
Congratulations, Mrs. Carter. Thank you for all the hard work and dedication you've put into making our school what it is today. I can't think of anyone else who deserves this as much as you do. Novi High School is extremely lucky to have you as our principal. Congratulations once again.
So I got Ms. Carter here under false pretenses yesterday, saying that she had to be here to support Ms. Brown in the presentation that Ms. Brown was going to make this evening, because the board was going to have several difficult questions that needed to be answered. And Ms. Carter, being true to herself, said she would be glad to come and support one of her teachers. So Ms. Carter, my guess is you don't have a speech for us, but we would like to at least say thank you, and if you have people in the audience that you would like to introduce, we would give you that opportunity as well.
Well, I see a lot of my people in this space. I'd be remiss not to say it's another great day to be a Novi Wildcat. I've had the distinct honor and privilege of serving this community for 23 years. Every day that I come to school, it does not feel like it's work. The students that I'm blessed to serve and the families that I'm able to interact with, you can't even quantify it or put it into words. I'm obviously at a shock, at a loss here in regards to what just happened, but it will be an honor and privilege to serve and represent principals from across the state of Michigan who have worked tirelessly, especially over the last 2 years, to navigate some really challenging times. But I believe that I have the fortitude to be able to do that in great fashion. And so I would like to sincerely thank all the people. I see a lot of faces out there. I could cry, but I'm not going to, who have been my supporters and my cheerleaders for decades. I would be remiss not to mention my siblings. Oh my gosh, my daughter's here. I didn't even see you. Without my family, I would not be who I am. And I would actually like to dedicate this recognition to my mom and my dad, who are both public educators with over 80 years combined in public service. My dad has had a really challenging year, had an accident, and so this one will be dedicated definitely to him. Without them raising us the way that they did, we would not be the individuals that we are. Service to others is at the core of the Knuckles legacy, and I will take great pride in continuing to live that out every day of my life. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Wendy, for the surprise, and Lydia for the surprise, and everyone else from MASSP. Thank you so very, very much. I appreciate it.
what I would suggest is, I don't know if any of the legions who came to support Ms. Carter would like to say a word, but if there's no one who, is there anyone who would like to come to the microphone?
Can I say something?
Certainly, Mr. Mena would like to say something, then if anybody would like to come to the microphone, we'd allow that. Mr. Mena, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I just want to say I've been here long enough, not necessarily on the board, but certainly involved in school board meetings for many, many years, and I do recall your road to getting to where you are at today, Mrs. Carter. I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart that I always appreciate the fact that you always carry yourself with the utmost professionalism. Your attention to detail is like nobody else that I know on this earth. And I just wanted to let you know, and I mean this honestly, you've always been an inspiration to me. And I really appreciate you.
Ms. Carolyn.
Well, I am one of Ms. Carter's secretaries, and we always wait on that call about the snow days. So we would really like to have a day off tomorrow, okay? So just think about it, all right?
Okay, I'll think about that.
All right.
Anybody else want to say anything?
It's hard to say no to a microphone if you have Knuckles in your last name. My name is Tony Knuckles. I'm Nicole's, one of her older brothers. And I just wanted to congratulate you on this incredible honor, Nicole. I've been fortunate to watch you grow up and mature and make an impact at every level in your entire life. Anything that you've been a part of, it is truly better because of your investment of time, energy, and effort. And so when I got the call, I was like I had won the Academy Award. It wasn't even me, it was hers. But I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And so I just wanted to take a moment to, commend you and let you know that we look at you as a role model and a great leader. And I remember a quote that we shared many years ago. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We know that doesn't happen without an incredible team. I was fortunate enough to hand off a little gift to your entire staff. Hopefully they enjoy it. But this night is about you and your recognition for all you've done. And we are just so honored and privileged to have you at the leadership helm in Novi. You've made a difference for the students, your staff, and your community, and you've made your family proud. So congratulations. We love you. Yep.
Thank you. So if nobody else wants to step to the mic, what I would suggest, Mr. Cook, is that we would allow these guests to go out into the foyer or into my office so that they can talk to Nicole, so that George can get some pithy quotes that we could put on the website, and that we then continue with our meeting. So.
We'll give you time to clear up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
So when you say competing in DC, is
Yep.
that a hallway obstacle course?
No. That's right. So it's a gladiator style competition with all the principals this summer. So.
Either that or can't.
Thank you, Ms. Carter, for being here.
Thank you.
No, he owes me.
Yes, I am sure.
She was even.
Yes, she
Wait,
will.
she's leaving? I mean, we might have some tough questions.
All right, Mr. Cook, we may continue with the agenda.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda are reports to the board. Today is the APIB annual report.
Thank you, and I will turn to Dr. Weber so he can introduce Ms. Brown.
Absolutely. Miss Elena Brown is heading our IB and AP efforts, and this year is an especially rigorous year for our IB audit and the work that she's done. Indicative of Principal Carter and the people that she surrounds herself with. Elena is an amazing, talk about attention to detail and commitment and advocacy for each of our students, and bringing new programming in and really finding ways that we can reach our diverse learners as well, and making every attempt that we can to make sure that IB and AP courses are accessible to each of our students. So thank you very much, Elena.
You're welcome. And thank you for all of your support. Thank you for inviting me this evening. Sorry I didn't make it. I'm actually glad that there was horrible weather and I didn't make it last month, so I missed out on that. Although I didn't sleep very well last night. I'm not sure how well she slept. Your lie worked a little too good. But thank you again for letting me present tonight. I'll try to be brief. You've seen the slideshow, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about our programming. And I just wanted to start out by saying, even though we've had 2 years plus of pandemic now, our students continue to test and to score well and to perform well and do great things because of these programs that you support. I just want to start out right out of the gate with the scores, and I wanted to point out that even though you may see a dip in Novi's AP scores, we are still well above the global average when it comes to scores related to everyone else. So we took a dip, but the world took a bigger dip, and we kept going. With IB, you'll notice that our scores kept track, and I'm pointing to this over here with the global averages put in there. We've continued to keep pace with the global trend of upward, but I wanted to point something out that explains those, because I did have the question from Dr. Matthews about why is it that our IB scores continue to go up while our AP scores went down. IB sent a letter actually out just last week to families telling them all the things they've been doing the last 2 years to support our students through a global pandemic. And one of those things that they did is they reduced assessment components in some curriculum while still communicating with universities to secure the recognition for students. So they modified the programming in order to meet our students where they were. Those modifications they gave 2 years notice will end next year, but they let us know last spring that that was going to happen so that we could plan going forward. They've been really supportive of our students. They've been publishing all sorts of things about supporting students at this difficult time and in difficult programming in general. So I just wanted to show you that the reason that IB global scores continue to go up is because IB has been a bit more flexible with their programming. I know a concern here is the AP IB enrollment. Keep in mind, IB is only a junior-senior program, so when you look at numbers, they're obviously going to be smaller, and because some students have selected classes at a younger age, they're not able to, or they don't need to take them older. So there are some reasons for those differences in enrollment. And just a closer look at those numbers, you'll notice that 86% of our students sitting in AP classes do take the test. They are there for the credit, the recognition, the placement. Our IB students, some of them are just there because they like the content. They are not required to test, and it doesn't make sense for them to test. So I wanted to explain why there's such disparity there. But if you're in a standard level IB class, it might not make sense at the college level for you to test there, so they're just there to gain the experience and get that depth of knowledge that they've heard about and want more of. Just a few things about testing projections. This is like the big thing I plan all year. We have 1,886 or 1,886 AP IB exams scheduled to go out this spring. In a single session, we have 250. I bring this up not because you guys want to know all these numbers. I bring it up because at the high school, we had a dedicated testing room, and then we had some other dedicated testing rooms. But the good thing is our student population continues to grow. These testing rooms have been taken over. The desks have been swapped out. They've been taken to classrooms as class sizes have increased. But now I don't have desks for testing. So I know that Ron Kane had asked you about some desks, and yes, they won't get used all year, but we have these flexible spaces that can't be used for flexible functions because there aren't desks in those spaces, or they're used as storage spaces. So if we could get more desks, and it would make my job easier and everyone else in the building, so I won't be disrupting them and moving them around for 2 weeks to accommodate for testing. And I do want to let you know I have explored other options. Last year I used the field house. I can't do that this year because there aren't 300 desks to move to the field house. And there were some security concerns. The walkie-talkies don't work well there. Cell phones don't work well there, so in case of emergency, it's not the safest place to be. I've looked at off-site testing. We couldn't book those because of COVID previously. There are security and supervision concerns that go with that. So for the time being, this is where we are. I'm trying to make the best of it. So it comes back to I need desks. I could use desks. So that's my reason for showing you all those numbers and to show you how great our students are doing. Dr. Weber mentioned that this year's a big year for IB. Every 5 years, IB requires us to go through a review. So in the fall, we went through a preliminary review. We kind of took stock of the programs and the policies that the program requires. We underwent a self-study questionnaire. Some of you took that self-study. We used that to design our committee work. Then we studied the self-study to figure out what the committees should be doing, and currently we're awaiting feedback. If you want the detailed calendar, here it is. I want to let you know that we are approved in December with that preliminary paperwork, in January, and then I submitted the last of the paperwork in February, so we're just awaiting the final report. and I'll share that with you when we get it. What I think is really useful about this process is I know we see IB as this small program within Novi High School, but I feel like it did some really good things. Through that self-study process, we were able to form 4 committees with administrative support to look at challenges in our building, things that we've talked around for years. We were able to borrow some of that professional development time and get all staff to think about and plan for these issues. One being academic integrity. We have a policy, we have a policy, but we're working on a better policy. Our assessment committee, you may know that we've talked back and forth about assessment at the high school for years. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, that was already something coming from you at our building, and we were able to meld it with what we were trying to do for IB because they have an inclusion policy requirement. And then the wellness committee. IB is working on and really pushing for wellness, and so we saw it as a great need to fit with our own. So we formed these 4 committees. They met in the fall twice. And out of that, I was able to develop some program development plans that matched our district plans. So we have an academic committee headed by Andrew Coleman, the CALs, and they're taking those ideas that came out of the assessment committee and academic integrity committee, and we're working on some building-wide goals and clarifications there. And then the other is removing barriers. For me specifically, Dr. Weber mentioned this, making our programs accessible to students at all levels. But what's nice is with that DEI committee, I can work with them and we can share data and really work at bridging those gaps for our students and making more programming accessible to all students. So I'm going to continue to work on these programs for the next 5 years when I have to report back to IB. So even though it seemed like it was this isolated small group in Novi High School, it really helped us have some useful conversations, and we're able to piggyback off of district goals and work alongside them. So thank you for the support in that. It was tough getting some time from those professional development days, but I think it was well worth the time. And then the other big project is the career-related program. Sarah Leppart and I pitched this to you last year. You approved it. We have been working ever since to get it off the ground. We have submitted all of the paperwork. We'll have a virtual visit in this June. Early June is what we've asked for. We're just waiting on a date and more information. We may need a board member to participate in that visit, so I'll be sending an email when I get more information and looking for support there. In the meantime, we have been promoting this. We've had student meetings, parent meetings, we've had Zooms, we've emailed students, sent out brochures, had sessions during advisory. And so we're really hoping to get more kids talking about it. I've had a lot of freshmen coming to talk to me about it. The sophomores aren't quite there yet. We're hoping to get this test group out there, make sure it works. And then I know that Mr. Amanda talked last year about expanding the program to other tracks. Once we can prove the concept with the business track, we're looking to expand it. And Sarah Leppart's already looking at partnerships with OSTC to see how we can make that more of a reality. And then AP and IB budget items and students at work. I just wanted to recognize all the good things that are coming out of this program. You saw I started the presentation with Rishith and Katie, their amazing accomplishments, but we also use some of the money that we get from AP exams and IP exams to support the programs within the school. AP Gov students enjoy sharing a subscription of the week. We've gotten them at various times in the year, we've gotten them classroom sets of issues. AP US, the walls are covered with whiteboard timeline for tracing continuity and change. And a new sound system to support AP language testing because they have a listening and a speaking piece that never goes all that well with the existing equipment. We've trained 2 new AP staff members. IB students helped rethink the Unity and Community program. It was small this year. COVID numbers were out of control. There wasn't much that they were able to get the community to support them with, but they're really excited next year to plan with other student groups and make this a day of service. We trained and are training 10 staff members for current and future support of the IB program. We're training so many because the teachers are willing to do virtual training this year, which is a cost savings. I can train about 4 or 5 teachers for what it costs me to send one out of town, and I can cover their classes so they can have some time to do the training. It's been hard on the teachers. I'm not going to say it's been easy, and it's not an ideal situation, but it helps us get some backup teachers trained so that it's not all on one teacher's shoulders. So we've taken advantage of that virtual option this year. I put out an IB Family S'more, which I linked there, and I wanted to show you this. I had already mentioned it, but there's Rod Francis tracing themes across time, our teacher of the year at the high school. But there's also increasingly the IB bio teachers have been asking me to support their growing zoo. And it's really enriched their curriculum. If you have a chance to stop by Nick Ryan or Katie James' rooms, they're amazing. So we've set aside a line item on our budget to support these animals because of the increased curriculum they can do and work they can do with this. So there's all kinds of details in the slideshow if you're super curious about their animals. And then just some upcoming budget items. We already got a discount on our new IB Business Management textbooks. They have a new curriculum starting next year that is our biggest program in IB. It's the one that attracts the most students. So we're excited about the new curriculum. Ms. Forrester's really pumped about it. So I'm looking forward to getting those books this fall. There's one new item. We've had it for years. It's been in the course catalog, but no one's ever taken us up on it. It's the Student Self-Taught Language A for IB diploma students. I'll take just a brief minute to explain this. But in IB, if English is their second language, the IB diploma is already that much more difficult because they're doing all these rigorous classes in a second language. What this allows them to do is study their own language and test IB literature in their own language and possibly write some of their papers in their own language. It allows them to get a bilingual diploma. It allows them to reduce the stress of AP or IB by removing one of those rigorous classes. The challenge for us will be, and it's not a big challenge, Northville does it for about 3 to 5 students a year. It's only for IB diploma kids, so it's not for every student in Novi High School. But we will buy a set of books for them. What's nice is we will buy an extra set for our library, and we'll grow a library of different language books in our media center that students have read and can speak to. And then we'll have to find them a language tutor. It's a few hours a year where the student can talk to someone who is fluent in that other language. So next year we're looking at a German language tutor. I've already been talking to Northville about how they've been working on this, but it's a really great opportunity for students who might not do the IB diploma because of that language obstacle. And now we finally have a student taking us up on it. So he's really excited about it. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a challenge, but I think it'll be worth the effort. I already mentioned testing desks, proctors. It's not proctor pay, it's just that I need proctors. I need people to give the tests. There's a few days where I may be short, so if you see my postings out there, my tweets, Nicole Carter's nice enough to put them in her Friday update. You know, parents who want to work for a few hours, send them my way. And then just some upcoming events. Theory of Knowledge, every year they do an exhibition. This is a new component. It's online if you want to check that out. The IB Senior Art Show is April 20th. You should stop by the auditorium lobby. It's pretty amazing what these kids put together. AP research presentations, you may hear from Rod Franchi. He might ask you to come watch the presentations and give feedback. If you get that opportunity, it's awesome to see what these kids accomplish in a year. And then I'll have some AP or IB, DP, and CP family meetings to welcome them to the program. There's the exam calendar, and then our authorization visit. That was a lot of information, really quick, but do you have any questions?
I just have one real quick, because I know that theory of knowledge class, at one point in time, we weren't teaching it, is that?
We don't offer it to all students, except if they are in IB Lit HL, that's where we're running it now. So actually, any student who's in IB Lit can take theory of knowledge.
Okay.
So with the way that the schedule changed, 4th hour has so many extra minutes that we're able to take one day a week and get our theory of knowledge hour requirement that way. And because it's part of that curriculum, it worked out, so.
Can I ask why the shift?
So we couldn't get students or teachers to want to take the class before school. We weren't allowed to do it when we switched to late start, because that would go against the idea of the late start, that kids need sleep. So we couldn't do it before school. Kids could never stay after school. And because we're on a 6-period day, it doesn't fit in students' schedules. So I've looked at and investigated all kinds of ways that different districts offer theory of knowledge. Some have a rotating teacher that pops into classes on a scheduled basis and just steals minutes from every IB class. We thought that this would be most consistent for the kids and for the teachers. And also, going forward, once kids realize that's how it's run, it might open the class up to more kids, because they'll be in that IB Lit class and they might as well just go with the theory of knowledge kids.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand, if you can go back for a second, because two of my daughters actually took the class during the 6th period day. Did requirements change at some point?
We used to offer
I'm showing my age. It was several years ago.
It's okay, because I remember too, we used to have enough kids sign up for theory of knowledge that we could offer it as a one-year class for non-IB diploma kids.
Okay,
But we no longer have enough kids show interest to run it as that separate from the diploma kids. So now the challenge has been to get kids who aren't the diploma to take it, and it's now in a place where they could.
okay, gotcha. Okay, so it was student-driven
Yeah.
by interest. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mena?
I have a couple related questions. I know we have a lot of, or at least used to have a lot of IB and AP classes that were very similar. Are we still merging them together, overlapping them
So
in one classroom?
we're actually doing more of that than we used to. We are co-seating for the first time this year. We're allowing students who are in AP Bio to call it, if they want to continue, IB HL1. So they can go on and take the second year of IB Bio without having to take 3 higher level biology classes. So that's new this year, so that we could increase enrollment in IB Bio. So a lot of kids could not stick around for a third year. Kids weren't choosing it for that reason. So we've co-seated that one. That's the only new one. Our language classes all sit together, so that's why all of our students will take SL1, but then SL2 and AP, world languages, are all the same. And then kids choose which test they take. They sit in the same classroom and they choose which test they take. The math classes don't work out well. The curriculum doesn't line up well enough. The history curriculum doesn't line up well enough. So those are really the only places we've been able to make it happen. But that biology one is new, and we're pretty excited about the opportunities for that.
And the other question I had, which is somewhat related, is class size. At one time, I had thought that, or at least that was the knowledge that I had at the time, that we were required to hold certain IB classes regardless of how many kids signed up for it. Is that still the case? And do we hold classes with like 6 kids at times?
So here's the challenge. To offer the diploma program, we have to allow kids to complete the diploma program. And if they can't complete it, we can't offer it. So we can't offer IB Business or IB Sports if we don't offer the full diploma. So there are years when we may have to run a class with 8 students so that those 8 students can complete their curriculum. Part of the motivation for bringing on the career-related program is that would get more students to take IB classes and fill those classes. The other reason to offer the career-related program is that we have career funding. We have a 3-year grant coming from the state that has increased the amount of funding that we're getting that's supposed to be earmarked for career. We're able to use that funding to pay for the training of teachers and the supplies of these classes, whether they're DP or CP. So we have funding to support it, and we're hoping that the growth of the CP will support the growth of the DP. The diploma program itself, the number of students we have in it, I don't think is ever going to get huge, but our goal is to grow the size of the classes so that we're not running classes of 8. And so that's why the biology class was our fix. We couldn't run HL2. We needed kids to finish it to complete their diploma. We actually had a student who had to drop her diploma because we weren't running biology. So the less classes we offer also makes it more difficult for students to take the diploma because we are forcing them to take a diploma of classes we offer, not of classes they want, if that makes sense. Like, we don't offer chemistry at the IB level, so they have to take biology or sports. We weren't offering biology, so they can only take sports. So you're really limiting the kinds of students who can access the program.
And you're saying that once we bring in the career programs, you think we'll be able to minimize those situations because those will be classes we think that a lot more kids will be interested in taking?
They'll opt into them. They might take IB Physics rather than regular physics to fulfill their graduation requirement, and then IB Physics will fill. They might take IB World History rather than their junior year World History class, and then that class should fill. Right? They might take IB Lit instead of AP Lang and Lit, so that those classes will all fill. And AP Lang and Lit are a little bit out of control. I'm not saying anything the teachers wouldn't say. So if we could not kill those classes, but just like take 15 kids and put them in IB, like, we would be in a much better position in both programs.
You know, and one that just came to mind, if I may, what do you think is the decision-making process for students that want to go with one of these type diploma programs between opting to go into IB diploma versus maybe entertaining going through Capstone?
So Capstone is 4 AP classes in any AP classes you want at any time in high school. right? And then it's seminar and research. So it's 6 AP classes total, which isn't overly burdensome in your schedule. You could take, you know, a few classes a year. You could take 1 and then 2 and then 4. Like you could split it up so that it wasn't a super rigorous program. You could also be a student who is accelerated in math and you want to do dual enrollment because you did BC Calc as a junior and you want to get out of Nova and you want dual enrollment. So the capstone might allow you that greater flexibility. The IB diploma is for the student who really wants to challenge themselves across disciplines. Not every student wants to do this. They have to take classes in areas of strength and weakness. They have to do the extended essay beyond the school day. They have to reflect on their contributions to the community through creativity, activity, and service outside of the school day. And so it's a unique student that is doing this, and that's why when the counselors check on their Common App, are they pursuing the most rigorous curriculum, it is IB, not because they're taking more classes than the AP students, because you could take way more AP classes, but because they're being forced to take classes across discipline. Right? And I tell my diploma students, you might not get A's in some of these classes, and IB does not expect you to get A's in all these classes. The diploma allows you to do poor in some classes and really well in others. You can't fail them all, but you don't need to get 100% in all your classes. You need to get a 4 out of 7 on your exams. You can even get 1-3 and still get the diploma. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you, Elena.
What a good information.
Okay, next on the agenda are comments from the audience related to agenda items. We've started to collect the green cards up front so that we can call on people and not have a delay. So if you intend to speak, please make sure we get the card up front here.
On agenda items first.
Then the first one here is on agenda items.
Got
Are they on agenda items?
They are.
Okay, so we asked that, read some guidelines if I can see them. I'm older than Danielle, so.
You can double up the glasses.
Individuals who wish to address the board must identify themselves, their address, and any organization they may represent. The board and individual board members will not directly respond to comments or questions that arise during the public participation portion of the meeting. Individuals who wish to address the board shall direct their comments to the entire board and not to individual board members, the superintendent, or other school district employees or members of the audience. Behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, discourteous, or otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting is strictly prohibited. Mr. Mena, who do we have?
Well, I think we have some folks that want to speak on finance and curriculum committee and then on the PE waiver. Why don't we start with Mr. Mishner?
Good evening, board. Jason Mitchell, Harrier Place. So first, my congratulations again to Principal Carter. That was amazing. I think she very much deserves that. It was a great way to start off a nice night. I wanted to kind of comment on the finance and curriculum committees that I had the opportunity to listen into the board discussion. They were both very informative, also very positive. I thought it was great to see Mr. McIntyre put in the actual breakout of the per dollar per student for how the different districts were funded. I thought that was a very equitable way to show how the funds were attributed through the different school districts in the board packet tonight. On the curriculum committee, I thought that was a great discussion. I really appreciated Mr. Mena disavowing the disparaging social media post that came out, I believe the night before, trying to rally everybody to come and stop basically social emotional learning curriculum. So I appreciated his comment saying that didn't come from him. None of the people that he talked to supported it. So that was very encouraging. And it was also encouraging to hear every single individual to the person say they supported the SEL as presented that night. So that was really encouraging. I'm a big supporter of that. So I was very encouraged to hear the community also standing behind the presentation that was given by Dr. Weber. And I was also encouraged that the school is looking at doing DEI audits in the media center. So I hope to hear more from that tonight, a discussion from the board. I know Our public library has done that under trustee Mitchner, my wife. And I'm very anxious to hear if we're gonna do that for our media centers, because I think that would be a very, very big value added. So overall, I was very encouraged by the committee work. You guys are working really hard. I know you guys put in a lot of hours, so I get to see all that work. And I really do appreciate you making those agendas public too, by the way, and allowing the community to come in, listen to what you're discussing and give our feedback. So really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Okay, next up, Ms. Molnar.
Hello, my name is Leah Molnar, and I live in Brighton. I represent the high school PE department and currently teach at Novi High School. I'm here to speak against the physical education waiver. What is the benefit of making it so easy to opt out of PE? Is it to open up a schedule? Physical education only takes up 1 out of 8 semesters for students at the high school. The repercussions of this are immense and incomprehensible. About a month ago, I was here advocating for the addition of a yoga course to the schedule, one of the first of many steps for developing an improved physical education program. Many were thanking me for bringing such a great opportunity to our school and to our students. Now, voting this waiver through potentially could be working against these opportunities by reducing student participation. As stated on the waiver, students already can test out or take PE during the summer. Why does there need to be an additional avenue? The proposed alternatives do not meet half of the state standards. I have printed off and color-coded the substandards that these classes potentially meet based off information I found on Atlas and speaking to varsity-level athletes who also went through JV and freshman programs. Out of the 30 substandards, band only covers 4, dance 13, and a varsity sport 15. A current PE teacher and our department cal were not consulted before the current version of this waiver was presented. Who wrote and proposed this waiver? Did they look at the state standards? How can courses or a sports season replace a class that does not even meet half of the requirements presented by the state? Are we creating our own standards at Novi, or are we following the state standards? How does this relate to other classes, and what do we value in this district? There are no other classes that have so many options to get out of taking a course. If students are not taught and introduced to concepts of personal fitness as adolescents, chances are they will not pursue them later on in life. As adults, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our students because kids can't always take care of themselves. If I cannot change your minds about removing the waiver completely, please consider the following alterations. 1, students must play a varsity sport for 2 seasons. JV and freshman teams should not be considered as a fulfillment, as the programs are less intensive. Marching band should also not be considered. There are many standards that are not met. It simply cannot be a replacement for PE. Dance fulfills a visual arts requirement. Can it fulfill a PE requirement as well? I also wanted to note that Ryan Smith, an elementary physical education teacher, emailed the board a presentation about how PE aligns with the district's strategic plan. I'll end with my favorite student story from last semester. At the beginning of the semester, I always send students a Google form to fill out and tell me a little bit about themselves to see how they're feeling about taking the class. One student told me that he was going to take the summer class, but decided he would give it a try in the fall since it was a senior year and he wanted to step out of his comfort zone. At the end of the semester, the student approached me thanking me for all the things he had learned in class. I watched him come out of his shell, be social and more confident than when he entered the gym in September. He told me that he enjoyed the class and that he now felt confident to build his own workout plan. He even bought himself a set of dumbbells, and that he feels like he's ready to go to college and knows what to do inside of a gym. This is exactly what all of our students are getting who go through our program. The physical education program at the high school offers opportunities for students to set down their phone, take time to get out of their chair, move and interact with others in a safe, inclusive, and positive setting where they learn how to manage their overall well-being. And isn't that what Novi strives for? I have the color-coded standards if you want them. I made 3.
You can bring them up to Ms. Ronan and we can pass them.
Okay.
Thank you. And
I've got one more green card, Danny Taylor.
We want Sheila to scan it and send it to us.
Good evening. My name is Danny Taylor. I live in Wixom. I'm also the PE teacher at Deerfield Elementary School. It's kind of wild standing at this podium right now because the last time I was standing at it, I was actually being approved to be the PE teacher at Deerfield Elementary School. And as odd as it is to say out loud, I was actually fulfilling a lifelong dream because I wanted to be a PE teacher for as long as I could possibly remember. As I went up through the educational process of becoming a PE teacher, that's when the stigma started. You're going to be a gym teacher. You're a gym teacher. Must be nice to be a gym teacher. Roll the balls out and play. You play dodgeball all day long. I'm here to tell you that in this district, and especially Leanne, we're physical education teachers. Never once would I ever accept being called a gym teacher because that's exactly what we do. We physically educate our students. With Leanne and her power and all the things that she's doing up at the high school, I believe she's making an incredible effort to change that stigma and to offer different types of courses at the high school that these kids can engage in, like she said, to get off their phones, to get out of their chairs. I've had grown adults look me in my eyes and say, well, what do you do all day? You just play games. I look right back at them and I say, I deal with life and death, because that's what physical education does. We deal with life and death. I believe in my heart that making it another avenue to make it easier to opt out of physical education is a huge mistake. People like Leanne are doing things up at the high school, writing grants and trying to change the face of our program, and me and my colleagues are completely in support of her. So I just ask that you consider to not let this waiver go through. And in fact, everybody could use more physical education up at the high school. Mental health is incredibly important, and physical education helps that mental health. So we need to invest in our students' spirit, their minds, and especially their bodies. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is the consent items.
Tonight, Mr. Cook, we have the approval of minutes from the regular meeting of February 17th and the special meeting minutes of February 28th. We also have approval of field trips, a variety of field trips. The Novi Varsity Softball, 2022 MHSAA Winter Tournaments, the first robotics competition, Winter Guard in Indianapolis, DECA International, and the Novi Meadows Choir Cedar Point trip. Some of those field trips may not happen depending on how our teams qualify.
So as a reminder, items on the consent items are those which are previously been considered by the board in committee or prior meetings and are of such routine nature that discussion is not required. So we'll take a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda, items A and B, the approval of field trips as presented.
Support. Moved by Mrs. Murphy, supported by Mr. Mena. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay. Now on to action items. The first action item is the personnel report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook, and I will turn to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This evening we have one new hire, Amanda Holofield, a community education assistant at the Early Childhood Education Center. A resignation. Brittany Flynn, science teacher at Novi Middle School. 2 retirements. Mary Turchi, instructional coach for the district, and Diane Flavin, special education parapro at NATC. We also have 3 additional resignations. Erin Krausen, English as a second language teacher in adult education. Scott DeVagalaire, English teacher at Career Prep. And Severina Hadarogia, English as a second language teacher in adult ed.
Can we have a recommendation? Mrs. Hood.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support. Sorry, Tom. Moved by Mrs. Hood, supported by Mrs. Roney. Any comments or, yes?
I do have a comment or a question actually for either Dr. Matthews or Dr. Kinzer, and that was, that is, so this week we have 6 retirements or resignations. At the March 17th meeting, which I missed, the board approved
February
2
17th.
I'm sorry, yes, February. Approved a retirement and a resignation. So a couple of these are in the adult education group or career prep, and it just seems like we are having, I'll say, too many resignations, but is this typical, or what, is this a pattern? What are you seeing?
No, I don't think it's typical. Staffing is always challenging in adult education and career prep, but never more so than it is now. The staffing challenges that we're facing across the board, I think, are magnified in those areas, and it's really because the wages are lower and the hours that we're able to offer people in these positions are fewer. So it makes it challenging in this kind of a staffing climate to keep people in those positions.
So as we look at career prep, adult ed, one of the conversations that Dr. Kinzer and I have had, along with Ms. Gianferra, is really, are there things that we can do to make the job more attractive? And increasing pay is clearly one of the first options that we need to look at. As Dr. Kinzer mentioned, some of the hours that we're asking these teachers to work are typically afternoon into evening, and so that makes it less appealing to some teachers. We use certified teachers, and so in the environment that we find ourselves in, certified teachers are certainly much more in demand. And so this combination has clearly impacted us. So what we're going to do is continue to work with Ms. Gianferra to find solutions to this so that we can continue to offer that program. As you'll recall, the Career Prep and Adult ESL program are really important programs for our students because they provide opportunities that a lot of districts don't offer, and they really give opportunities to our students that will help them not only find a career, but also improve their career opportunities. And so we as a district have made a commitment to this, and so we will find solutions to this.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. Seeing none, call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 6-0. Next thing on our agenda is donations. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Tonight, we would like to present to the board a donation of $5,000 to sponsor the Frog Force First Team 503 at Novi High School. And this donation is from Nissan North America, and we would like the board to accept this donation as presented with appreciation and thanks.
Do I have a motion? Mrs. Roney.
I'll make the motion that the Novi Community Schools Board of Ed accept the donation as presented with the appreciation and thanks.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Roney, supported by Mr. Mena. Do we have any comments?
This is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Any
Yeah,
concerns?
it's awesome.
Yes.
No,
really
this is not the first time Nissan has supported our Frog Force, is it?
I do not believe it is, but what we have decided to do is to highlight these more than just by putting them on a consent agenda, so that our community knows the tremendous support we get from the business community to support our students at the high school. And if you were at the high school this week, they had a Frog Force open house, and you could see the wonderful things that this money allows us to do with students now from preschool all the way up through high school.
Yeah. Great.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I was there also, and it's amazing what those kids do, and I'm sure Nissan being involved with them probably knows, but certainly, boy, that's $5,000 that will definitely be put into good use. Yeah.
Yes, what the Frog Force does is above and beyond anything we really teach in here. And it's amazing, and I quite often will pop in on them as they're building after an event that at the high school. And so, it's trial and error like anywhere else. But the kids they're there from the end of school until they're kicked out at 11 o'clock at night. You know, trying things, building things, and getting things to work, so. Donation from Nissan, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not the first one we've had from them. It is greatly appreciated. And like Dr. Matthews says, hopefully, you know, more donations in the future can come this way, that the board can really show its appreciation and thanks for support that we're getting from businesses and outside community. Any other comments? No concerns, I hope?
No.
Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Resoundingly passes 6-0. Next thing on our action item is the 21-22 budget amendment. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. On June 10th, 2021, the Board of Education adopted the district's budget for the 2021-22 fiscal year. An amendment to the budget reflecting all the changes known at this time has been prepared. It was presented to the Finance Committee on February 10th, 2022 for review, and is presented to the Board of Education tonight. The 2021-2022 budget amendment was also presented for information and discussion at the February 17th board meeting and comes back tonight to the board for action. And if you have questions on that, Mr. McIntyre has all of the answers.
We talked about this last week in the meeting, and are there any other questions that have come up? Or?
Do you need a?
Sure.
you need
I am more than willing to listen to you give a finance committee explanation.
No. Do you need a motion?
Oh, correction, yes, we need a motion.
Okay, I'll do that. I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the 2021-2022 final budget amendment as presented per the attached resolution.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Hood, supported by Mr. Smith. Now, if anybody has any comments.
My only comment would be, we reviewed this at the Finance Committee. I missed our discussion in the last meeting, but Mr. McIntyre and his team put in a lot of work, and I know I say this every time, there's been so many changes to what came in and what we expected or didn't get, or we got more than we expected. Anyway, they've just done so much work. And I'm proud that, I'm just proud of the work that they did. Thank you.
Mr. Mena.
So, Mr. McIntyre, we had a decrease in local revenue, an increase in state revenue, an increase in federal revenue, and then an increase in operating expenses. So is the change on this amendment on the plus side or on the negative side at this point?
It's on the plus side.
Okay.
So the biggest change in revenue is the federal money we got from the SO3 equalization, about $6.5 million. That is the biggest change. The smaller change is state revenue. We got an increase in foundation allowance. And the decrease in local revenue, some gate receipts and stuff like that, I drove that number down a little bit. But the overall increase is about a 7% increase on what I originally presented to you guys back in June. And revenue, expenses follow revenue, so we got more revenue and there was more expenditures as well.
So the increase in our budget, did I read this correctly, that we made a decision on how we were going to allocate the extra dollars?
Yes, that, when you guys approved the budget, okay, so the overall number when you guys approved, so it's not, maybe not line item by line item, but just overall, the approval was given, yes.
I just saw some line items here on expenditures and variance, and so there was a revision at different levels, like instructional support, general administration, school administration. So did we just divide up the extra dollars equally percentage-wise as they were before? I'm just wondering where the dollars actually went.
Most of those are in salaries and benefits.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Greg, do we have any control over this? I mean, I guess I don't understand when I look at it, how Farmington and Waterford get 50% more dollars than we did. Walled Lake gets 100% more. You know, maybe I understand why Detroit would get more, but $1,300,000 compared to us getting 10,000? It's just, is it, like, what, can we control it all? Can we ask for more? Can we?
No, unfortunately, no. It's really based on the title formula. So we have a low free reduced count here. So it's federal funds, and they're based on pretty much that formula.
So last year, when the federal government was debating this, the ESSER funds, many of us contacted our representatives and senators because we knew they were going to divide it up by the titles formula. And what we argued was that it would be better allocated on a per pupil basis, so that every student in the state would benefit from it, as opposed to just allocating it on a free and reduced lunch title formula. What we were told was that that was the easiest and quickest way to get money from the federal government out to districts. What we tried to argue was that we were one of the only districts in Oakland County that actually had students in seats through the pandemic, through the 2021 school year. That the students in our district counted as much as the students in other districts, and yet that didn't hold much weight with the representatives and senators, and they focused on just getting the money out as quickly as possible. And so, for our district, we really believe we're underfunded through the ESSER amount because we increase technology, we increase support for students, we increase the opportunities for our students before and after school. All of those things that we did, other districts didn't do because they were completely virtual last year, and yet we didn't receive, we don't think, a fair amount of money through the ESSER process.
No, our expenses were higher because their buildings were open.
Yep.
So that old adage, haste makes waste?
It might be a true adage.
Might be true in this situation, I would say. They were hasty to get the money out, and they didn't do it in a way that really, at the end of the day, benefits the students directly.
You know, last summer, or the last 2 summers, I've gone to Washington DC with the AASA Advocacy Conference, and those are the conversations that we really had with our senators and representatives, and yet they were not overly receptive to those conversations because it would have required them to I'll say it this way, to do more work, and they were unwilling to do that.
But if you just look at the numbers, they don't add up.
They don't.
From a percentage of kids that are getting free and reduced lunch.
Correct.
From a percentage of kids that are classified as qualifying as poverty, whatever that means.
Well, one of the arguments that we made is that those students already get extra money through the title process. And so, for example, in Detroit, those, they have a much higher free and reduced lunch population than we do. And so they get extra money through the title process already. And to base ESSER funds on that, we thought was not the most appropriate way to do that. But that's the way they decided to do it. And as you can see through the information that Mr. McIntyre gave to you, it really created some inequalities throughout the
If you just follow the math, Detroit would have gotten 30,000, well, we got 10.
Right.
But instead of 30, it was 1,300,000.
Right.
So it just doesn't add up. All right.
So to answer your question, there's nothing that we could have done to get more money.
Sounds like you did all you could.
We tried.
Any other questions? Mrs. Hood?
Well, we discussed this at this particular topic at the Finance Committee, and I said then that I don't know that it's necessarily a helpful comparison when I think Walled Lake has triple our students. I know they have 3 high schools and
They have about 2.5 times our students.
okay. Detroit has 106 schools. They have 53,000 students. Detroit's household income is $30,894. Novi's household income is $98,020. You know, and we just, through a regular vote, just a consent agenda, we approved activities for our students to go to things with their parents driving them for 437 students. The softball tournament in Mount Pleasant, and Winter Guard going to Indianapolis, 250 kids going to the DECA conference. And so to argue that, this is just me, to argue that we are in any way comparable to, that our students are in any way in the same situation as students in Detroit, I personally reject that. So, it's all done, you know, the budget is what it is, but this kind of conversation just kind of disappoints me from people in Novi. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, then we will call the question to order. All those in favor of the amended budget, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 6-0. That brings us to item D, physical education waiver. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. The curriculum committee met several times to discuss offering physical education credit to students who meet the state graduation requirement for physical education in the following ways. Complete a course that meets the PE requirement. Complete a summer school course that meets the PE requirement. Complete both years of IB Sports, Exercise and Health Science, HL1 and HL2. Earn credit through the PE test out, scoring 80% or above. Complete the PE waiver process listed below. PE waiver process is that 1, students may qualify for a PE waiver in the following ways. 2 seasons of high school sport, freshman, JV, varsity, or unified sport. 2 seasons of marching band. 2 credits of dance at Novi High School. 2, the PE waiver must be signed by the athletic director, marching band director, or dance program director after completion of the second season/credit. 3, students must submit the completed and signed PE waiver application form to the Student Services Office prior to the end of their junior year. 4, any student who has not met the PE requirement through one of the means above will be scheduled into a PE course during their senior year. Students who complete the PE waiver process will have this noted on their transcript. There's no additional credit awarded for the waiver, and students who qualify for the PE waiver must still meet the minimum 22 credit requirement for graduation from Novi High School. This has been presented for information and discussion at the February 17th meeting, discussed as mentioned, at several curriculum committee meetings, and comes back to the board tonight for approval. I'll turn to Dr. Weber to see if he has any additional comments.
No, I appreciate the comments from our physical education teachers who came tonight, obviously, and the piece here is the notion of what the needs of the community are as well. And listening to our community in those needs that they have, and the exceptionally high percentage of students who we did have taking the summer option for PE, feeling that so many, I believe it is 1 out of every 2 of our students are involved in a club or an athletic pursuit. This was something that had broad appeal from students and parents. And it's something that, as Ms. Roney can attest to, that we've actually met a number of times on, including last year at the curriculum committee meetings as well. So while this may be difficult for some folks to see or to support, please know for our staff in the room and throughout the district that our district's commitment to specials and physical education, as well as athletic opportunities, fine arts opportunities, is exceptional, and the percentage of kids that take part in those activities is fantastic. In no way, shape, or form does this say that we devalue the work of anybody. It says that we're listening to our population and tracking the numbers of what we're seeing in the summertime.
Can I get a recommendation? Mrs. Rowe.
I recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approves the physical education waiver as presented.
support?
I'll support.
Supported by recommended by Mrs. Roney, supported by Mrs. Hood. Are there any comments or concerns, or Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I'll come on and comment on this, thank you. And I did read Coach Smith's email also, and thank you for this, to the staff who spoke to us earlier. I will support this. I mean, maybe it's not gonna pass now, looking at nobody else wanted to support it, but I will support it. But I am going to support it. I had two sons come through school. They both participated in marching band, but they also both participated in at least 2 years of varsity sports, so they would be eligible for the waiver. But what disappointed me when my older son started his first year at the high school was after we went away from the block schedule, which allowed students to take, 7 courses. And so when you go to 6 courses, to get all of your requirements in, for them to participate in marching band for all 4 years, they had to drop their language, which really was my bigger disappointment, that they only had 2 years of language, and then they had to drop it because there was no more room in the schedule. So I would argue, I'm gonna support this, I don't know if it'll pass, I'm going to support this waiver, but I think we should consider going back to the block schedule. Well, anyway, so that's what I would support instead, but I will support this tonight, thank you.
Mr. Member?
You know, I would also, at some point, maybe we can do this during work session, at least have some discussions about what the pluses and minuses would be to looking at block scheduling again too. Something, I mean, it's not necessarily something we have to decide, but it'd be nice to at least revisit.
Okay.
And maybe contrast how things have been running since we've changed off of it to where we're at today. I've had a lot of community members over the years, having kids in band over the years, certainly approached me about this waiver for quite some time. One of the things that I always look at when this is presented to us is what are the pluses and what are the minuses in doing this? And, I sense that I got a lot of pluses, which was okay because I was leaning towards supporting it. But it is always nice when we can get folks in administration to kind of let us know maybe what some of the downsides would be. This way, I feel more prepared for comments like we got today. I really wasn't expecting that. And I think what really disappoints me most is well, first of all, I am concerned if there is a difference in opinion on whether or not the waiver will actually meet the requirements. I think there's a difference of opinion there. I think what I'm hearing is there's some concerns there. What I'm hoping I'm not hearing is employees in our district feeling as stakeholders that we're not getting their input in a proper fashion. I think I've mentioned that a few times in the past. I think there's an opportunity for improvement there, and I just hope that, that we really consider that in the future. And sometimes it's just, it's tough. I mean, I have tough conversations with people all the time, and sometimes you just, you just agree to disagree, and like Dr. Weber said, this is certainly something that came about because of community input. Again, there's still some questions on the table here. My first question to you is our backs on the wall now? Is this something we have to approve tonight in order for us to do any scheduling changes, or can we maybe get some sort of update from you
I'll turn to Dr. Weber. I don't know the timeliness of this. I know students are registering.
Yeah, they're registering right now. I know that at the curriculum committee meetings last year, that we had a physical education teacher as well as our athletic director was there. I know that I've spoken with physical education teachers, and I don't think anybody wants to see something that they believe in compromised. To say that we haven't talked to people or spoken to people, I don't think is accurate. Or fair, frankly, because we have. The notion is that what my experience is often is that when an answer is not arrived at that people want, oftentimes then things can go sideways. So it is definitely the pleasure of the board to vote on it in the way that you want, but I want to be very clear on record that we did indeed speak with people who teach physical education, that we did indeed have these conversations. Mary and I were at those meetings last year. And as far as compromising schedules and so on, if the board doesn't approve it, then this just won't be available for students to engage in that. And that is something then that we'll deal with.
So if the board wanted to table it until the next meeting, we could gather additional information if the board feels like they need that. Schedules are being run, but in the process, I think if the board, our next meeting is March 17th, schedules were not finalized until April, May. And so there would be an opportunity, if the board did approve it at that point, that students might be able to go to their counselors and revise schedules if they needed to. It's up to the pleasure of the board. We brought it tonight, but that certainly is an option.
Go ahead, Eve.
Okay, I do have a couple questions. One, I know this wasn't attached to our board work, but it was part of the curriculum committee meeting, which was like the signed contract. And there's additional information in there that if the student drops band, is cut from a team, is ruled injured, quits, is ruled ineligible during the season, or has a violation of the athletic code, they're no longer eligible for the waiver. I think there's some additional things in here that kind of codify what the expectation is, which I appreciated. Can you, Dr. Weber, I know that if you wouldn't mind speaking to the development of this, I know that there was thought put into to this, and also you addressed this briefly at, I believe, the curriculum committee meeting last time, but unfortunately I was not at all the previous ones. So would you mind addressing first kind of the development of this, because I know it took some time to do that, and also the consideration of
So a number of years ago, we went and looked at schools around our region and area and found that a preponderance of those schools offered this option. We have a very robust marching band program, very robust color guard, winter guard programs as well. As I mentioned, our athletics piece was there. So I was tasked with looking into how do we make this something that's available for our families here in Novi. Also looking at our numbers of students who are taking physical education in the summertime.
Do you have that number?
No, I don't,
Okay,
not
that's
out of my
fine.
head, but
I know it was high.
I can find it.
That's okay.
As well as, in my 12 years here, the declension of physical education classes at the high school prior to the waiver. I believe in 2010-11, when I came in, I want to say that we had 4 physical education teachers at the high school. I can check on that with Principal Carter. And what we've seen is that growth in physical education going into the summertime. And really, Ms. Hood alluded to this, and it's the fact that kids having to give up other courses or courses that they also wanted to take in need of taking the physical education course. And approving something like the yoga course this year, it's my belief that when we have content that is desirable, that people and kids take it and want to interact with it. And I think one of the pieces here as well is to think that the students who are not maybe taking physical education and fulfilling these other areas are amazingly driven students who are filling their schedules with other opportunities and other things that they're passionate about. So that's what I'll say to that. So the genesis of the conversations Also talked about looking at physical education classes to make them perhaps more attractive. One of the recommendations from a physical education teacher was the swimming aspect of P or physical education at the high school, and the impact that that may have as well on interest on there.
Positive or negative impact?
Negative.
Okay.
And it had to do with students, for instance, getting ready to come to school in the morning and jumping in the pool first hour and then having to get back after it. And that was just feedback from students.
And
I haven't seen, on that particular piece, I'm not sure, none of this was shared with me by our physical education teachers prior to tonight. As far as the concerns about if those are standards, the general requirements for physical education, Dr. Matthews and I addressed that, and that this would be something that we could indeed do. And again, we are far from an outlier in this and the number of schools that offer this option as well.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rowe?
I'll just kind of reiterate what Dr. Weber has said. We did invite Brian Gordon and other, physical education teachers. And part of that conversation came out as we need to offer better physical education courses. And so I was pleased when you brought yoga to us, because I see that as a highly, class that people will take. And we did go around and around 4 or 5 meetings on this. So it wasn't something that we just said, oh, let's do this. We did research and we came up with it. It wasn't just because, we got a bunch of band parents that want their kids to be waived. No, this was, like Mrs. Hood said, there was numerous reasons. Kids want to take more classes. And our athletes work hard, our band students work hard. And we also threw I think dance in there. So it's not just like athletics and band. There's other aspects to it. We thought hard about this. This wasn't something that we just plucked out of the sky one meeting and said, let's do it. We had a lot of time. It was a whole year process. And to say that we didn't ask, we had Brian Gordon there, we had other teachers. We asked a lot of input, so that's what I'm saying. And of course, I'm going to support this because I think it's great for our kids, because now they can take, like you said, an English class or a language class. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Roney. No?
I don't want to disappoint.
Mrs. Murphy?
Well, I'm just going to say really quickly that I'm going to support this, but I do want us to continually watch. I am a big believer that as a mental health professional, that physical movement is advantageous for our students' mental health. Obviously, those students that aren't doing some of those physical things, I would hope that, like you said, we would target the yoga. I love that idea, and just target some of those additional things that really can help. So I do think monitoring the numbers of this and taking a look at this and reviewing it. When this has been talked about for a long time. I've been on the board 15 years. I've only been talking about it for 15 years. Parents are constantly asking, especially when we moved from the block, it became a much bigger issue. And part of the concern, I think, at that point in time was who is giving the credit. We have had so many coaches at different points in time that were not teachers. So there was concern expressed about that, I remember. Clearly that was a concern. I appreciate that this has been a long process and that obviously other districts are doing this. Do we know if there's been a negative impact on their PE, or has it been positive? That's the...
I think one of the things that Dr. Weber alluded to is that, what we've seen at the high school already, I've been here 11 years, Dr. Weber 12 years, is that the number of physical education teachers at the high school has been reduced, even though we had this requirement in place. And why has it been reduced? Because so many students are taking the requirement during the summer. And so one of the things that we, Dr. Weber and I have talked about with the high school administration and high school teachers is really this idea of creating a more robust physical education kind of curriculum at the high school, and yoga clearly this year is one of the outcomes of that. And we believe that this kind of general PE class can be replaced by other activities that students may want to participate in that would drive the numbers higher. But you know, this is a discussion about providing options for students, and the question becomes, you know, as you create options, you're giving students choices, and as we've said, Dr. Webb and I have said many times, that we have such a robust curriculum at the high school because we give students choices. And students make the choices that they want to make to get the experiences that they want to get before they move and graduate from our high school.
Okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate the discussion as well and the work that's gone into it. I do have 4 kids that all participated in multiple sports and activities, and I honestly believe that if yoga had been offered, back then, I would have had girls taking it, even though that they were participating in a lot of other things. There are things that I think would be appealing, and that's it. That's all I'm saying.
I looked at this and I was the one that asked for the state requirements to be provided to the board. And as I read through that, I see a lot of dance, you know, as part of the requirement. And the first one, right on the very top, is lifelong activities. You know, and everything that we have here is literally a lifelong activity. Although, you know, you can pick up or put down an instrument anytime, you know, choir, your voice you carry with you all the time. My concern was meeting the minimum level, you know, requirements for the state. And looking at it that way, there's a lot more in there that is not taught in our extracurricular activities and quite often in our core curricular activities. That being said, I'm kind of torn on this yet. But then I go back to, okay, we just approved a study skills course with less than 1/10 of it being, you know, a mathematical involved, but you can get a math credit for it. Our art courses, you get math credit for it. I'm not sure how. But, so I think there's a problem with the system and what the requirements are, or minimum requirements. You know, having participated in varsity sports, having participated in marching bands, and, you know, the likes of that, I understand all the work that's been done, you know, band with the band camp, and then, you know, practices every night, and all the time that they put in. But, you know, is it, a lot of the requirements that were in there did not fit, because the evaluation and learning of certain aspects. So I guess with that being said, I'm going, if nobody else has any comments, I guess I will call to the question. Go ahead, Mr. Moran.
Yeah, I do. So I guess what I'm hearing is that since there are other districts who are doing this as well, and my assumption is that our waiver mimics what's happening in other districts.
Yes,
Okay?
it does.
And I'm sure you've probably talked to folks in those districts, and they're not being challenged. You feel pretty confident that it without a question meets the minimum requirements, and we're never going to have any challenges to that going forward.
It's hard to say never have
Well,
challenges,
if we get challenged,
you know,
it would be other districts would get challenged.
Other districts would as well.
I should say us unilaterally.
This
getting-
idea.
Right.
If it's challenged in this district, it would be challenged across the
And I'm okay with
county.
that, right.
Because what we're proposing is mimicked in multiple other districts in Oakland County. And they've had this waiver for many years. When I was in Troy, which was between the years of 1998 and 2008, they already had the waiver in place. And so they've had it for 20 years or more.
Okay. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. 5-1 passes. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the attorney.
So this is brought to the board because a complaint has been filed that needs investigation. This complaint is not about any financial impropriety or any administrative investigation, but a complaint has been filed that needs investigation. Our attorney, Tim Gardner, recommends that we hire a third-party firm to conduct the investigation so that there's no appearance of impropriety in the investigation. And so we would ask the board that you would approve contracting with the Allen Law Group to conduct this complaint investigation.
Have a recommendation. Mrs. Murphy.
I'll move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve contracting with Allen, I can't scroll down, sorry, Allen Law Group to conduct a complaint investigation.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Murphy, supported by Mrs. Hood. Any questions? I guess I don't know if you can answer this question, but the reason for the recommendation to go to a third party?
Because Tim Gardner wants there not to be any suggestion that there is a conflict of interest on who investigates. And so with a third party, it would relieve both the board and the administration from the investigation. And so as a result, it would give us a neutral third party.
So without the school district and administration's attorney investigating?
Correct.
it would be- Okay. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Let's call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay, that brings us to our information discussion section. Technology Refresh Phase 3. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you. We have Mr. Anthony Licricchio here this evening to kind of walk the board through this, and he will walk the board through this in a very efficient manner.
Good evening, Board of Education. Nice to see everyone. We are looking to have the board take a look at Refresh 3, and this is going to be to refresh 4 of the Apple computer labs in the district. That's 3 at the high school, 1 in the middle school, and the last fleet of Chromebooks. I believe you have the report, the letter to the board in front of you. Perfect. And then obviously of 1,300 Chromebooks. I can go over any questions or anything about, yes.
How do you define a fleet of Chromebooks?
So 1,300 Chromebooks.
So we have how many fleets?
So I guess it's just a choice of word that I use, that was our
I'm
last.
not making fun of that, I think it's a good
Quite all
word.
right. This was looking through back at our refresh cycle. We had, this would be the last round. And there was actually just under 1,000 we've had to add to it because of parapros, bus drivers, and some other new staff. Since we've gone to one-to-one, just the need to increase those devices, so.
Mr. Licricchio, do these new devices, are we taking out of service computers?
Yes, Dr. Matthews, we'll be taking out just under 1,000 that have their end of life. So they're no longer supported by Google or by Dell. So obviously we can't use them for state testing. So thank you for that question, Superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So this comes to the board.
Actually, I have.
Okay.
Just want to make sure everybody else gets a chance to speak. We have 4 Apple computer labs with the one-to-one devices. How much are the computer labs actually being used anymore?
Well, these Apple, we can't run the type of software on the Chromebooks. It's incompatible. We don't have the processing power or anything. And the current labs that have this aging fleet, we've got anywhere from some 2014 models to some 2017 models. And I will tell you, there are dogs. There's a lot of wasted time for waiting some of these to boot up and processing. It's the old school hard drive in it. So, I mean, it's going to be night and day. We ended up purchasing one trial model and brought it up over to the high school to have Miss Edmonds out of Graphic Arts, just to make sure that it fit the needs, and she was blown away. So,
Mr. Leclerc, could you let the board know in those labs the specificity of, and you just alluded to that, but the classes that use the Apple platform, for those folks who are Apple users in the room, I know there's like two, it seems like, groups, Apple versus PC, but it seems like the graphics arts people, journalism folks really gravitate towards those Apple devices.
absolutely, and it's part of it's the graphics. I mean, you talk to anyone even in design, and that's their job. It's Apple all day long. When you come off the processing power and you go just the speed and the way things operate, you can have that same software, whether it's Photoshop, iMovie, Final Cut. If you have a PC-based version, all day long, Apple is your choice for these types of courses and classes.
So they will be used in our graphic design art classes, they'll be used in our journalism class, they'll be used in our yearbook class, they'll be used in our new kind of TV production kind of class that we have. So they're used at both the middle school and the high school. And so they're used throughout the day. I've been in the high school, as Dr. Weber has been, in the middle school multiple times, and we've seen those computer labs being used throughout the day. It's not a standalone used only 1 hour of the day, they're used multiple hours throughout the day.
Okay.
And also praise for our students and families. I had the occasion to speak with the head of tech at another district, and she said, "What's your breakage rate in Novi?" And I gave her ours, and she said, "Pardon me? Ours is 28%. That they're having to send out." And I know
Not ours.
Not ours.
No. She was talking to Maz, and our number is significantly lower. And I'm not sure if you know that off the top of your head, but
We have, my goodness, we're way under 10%. I mean, with our one-to-one, I mean, we are just blessed with the family and the students and staff that take care of the devices. I'm just completely blown away at the small amount of breakage that we have, whether it's the insured devices or not insured.
and candidly, that was a huge concern that we had going into this, is what were we gonna do in those situations? And really, it is, I'm not gonna say it's a non-issue, but compared to all the folks that I've spoken with, that does not seem to be a huge thing that we're dealing with. So I just would take occasion to thank our parents and students for taking those devices and really taking care of them and using them in the way we want, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Weber.
Since we're refreshing, what are we doing as far as retrying the old ones? What are we doing with them?
The old ones, what we can generally do is we'll end up for, either through Apple, we can get a quote on what they would, to purchase them back. And then we also have another company that we've used over the years, many years, even that my predecessor have used, Motor City Recycling.
Okay.
So,
And is that true for the Chromebooks as well?
yes, yep, that's correct, Dr. Matthews.
Mrs. Murphy?
Yeah, I just want to say, so giving our students the opportunity to utilize newer product as they go out into the world, or even go to college, to start some of those, sometimes some of the requirements is that they have specific knowledge. I had two daughters that one of them's in grad school for film and the other went to U of M, and having had the knowledge of some of the Apple software that is utilized at our high school was really advantageous.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that for some of their classes, to be able to have that, to have both as they go, out into the world.
Absolutely.
And knowledge of those things. I think it's awesome that we can provide our kids with that.
Yeah, we looked at even updating, could we even update the hard drive in some of them, but the cost, it just wasn't worth it, what it cost to do it, and the time and the age on these current machines. So we looked at different avenues. And then we also went with the M1 chip that is kind of future-proofing per se, because Apple will no longer support Intel. So we want to make sure we have a product that Apple will continue to support.
Mr. Mim?
In general, now that we've invested now quite a bit of money and quite a bit of time in Chromebooks, what have you found the primary usage has been? It mostly browsing-based type things, or are we also using a lot of the Google infrastructure like Docs and Sheets and things like that?
Oh, absolutely, Docs, Sheets. I mean, we have a robust just number of software applications that are used across the district, just with, and then obviously the G Suite, your Docs, your Sheets, all those type of applications are used. We currently don't have software set up to know what the usage is across some of those platforms.
But nobody's feeling handcuffed because, for example, they can't install Word on there, or they can't install any other client-based software.
Correct, and there's, over at the high school, there may be a few programs where we do have a small fleet of maybe like 30, 35 of laptops for a particular course, one course over at the high school that would need to utilize a PC machine. But yeah, for majority of it, it's the Chromebooks are
So for
definitely
example, our
filling that need.
business department, I think has a fleet, or has a.
Look what you've done to us.
Has a group
know.
of.
Yeah, there's a lab. Yep.
Dell computers, because they
Correct.
use Excel and spreadsheets.
Correct, there's a PC-based lab.
And Dr. Matthews, I'd offer, this sounds like perhaps a good topic for a little bit of a presentation or conversation, whether it's a workshop or curriculum committee, so the board can understand how these devices are being used. I have the privilege of having a child in the district, but it's amazing how quickly our teachers and students have taken to using those, taking a picture of the homework and just sending it via Schoology to their teacher. There's no more I left it in my backpack type of thing going on. And it's really extraordinary, and Maz and Anthony and their team have really done a heck of a job in helping make that happen. I couldn't be happier with it.
I was in an 8th grade English language arts class today, and students were using one of the Google Sheets to interact with each other, interact with the teacher, complete an assignment, and so the devices are really being used not to browse the internet, but really to create product or create essays, create documents, create other kinds of things that really enhance their learning.
If I may add, 89 points, I want to say we're about 89% of Novi students have checked out a device. So again, that's, you got K through 1's an iPad, and then 1 through, first grade up through 12 is the Chromebook.
I was asked by a parent, is there any investigation going on limiting access on things? Because the kid's sitting there in class with a Chromebook, quite often they're on Netflix.
Yeah.
Or they're watching TikTok or something like that.
Yep, that's
And,
actually a discussion we've actually have been getting, have already kind of started. We've actually been having a discussion of looking at this. If districts, not just Novi, across the United States, it went to 1-to-1 overnight. And so now it's trying to looking at the education piece of building the education on using proper use from anything from parents, teachers, students. So we're already starting to actually look at some of those items.
Okay, because I know I can't get into anything for the school on my work computer. So, Jason, you don't have to worry about that, but I get to. So, but, I know my son will pull up a book and read his book on his Chromebook rather than attending class. It's not the worst thing in the world, but, he said other kids have been there doing other things in places where they shouldn't be.
We do have software that protect, that they can't get to certain sites.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
legally.
age-appropriate blocks on.
Correct, we do.
something.
The district, all devices are filtered on and off-site through Cisco Umbrella. So that allows devices that are on-prem and off-prem, and we're meeting the federal compliance of what needs to be blocked and should be blocked.
Okay. Mrs. Rowley?
Just a question on the supply. Do we expect we'll get these in a timely manner?
Yeah, I've been spending actually few months working on this with Apple and talking with educators. And that's one of my questions is, okay, once I go to the board, as I already told them, I'm going to the board, we're going to discuss and then have them on the 17th hopefully approve. Am I going to have the quick turnaround? And I've been told, yeah, Apple's one of the things we shouldn't, probably a few weeks we should be okay. So,
Okay.
great question.
Okay, any other questions? No? Let's move on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lucrezio.
Thank you, Board of Education.
That brings us to item P, to 2021-2022 E-rate awards.
And we have Maz here this evening, the great Maz, the one and only Maz, who's behind the curtain all the time, to talk to us about the E-rate projects, network electronics, wireless access points, and uninterruptible power supply.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So in front of you, we have 3 projects interlinked because it provides our backbone for everything we do in the district. So the first project we're considering doing is a network electronics refresh. So that's all of our switching and electronics that sit in the closets behind the scenes. And we received 3 bids for this particular project. I want to note that as you look at the bids, bidding network electronics is a little different. It's like going to ask for a car, and a vendor will offer you a Chevette, and another one will offer you a Cadillac because you asked for a car. So our job was to try and true this up based upon what we asked for. So in looking at these bids, one of the vendors was not compliant with their bid response based upon the specs that we asked for, trying to design a network that will last the district for 5 to 7 years. The other 2 vendors were compliant in that particular category. How we determined that was by interviewing and looking at their parts list, talking with them, evaluating their responses to our bid versus what we asked for. So as you look at the 3 bids for network electronics, we have Intercom TSG, which bid a Cisco Meraki product, Delta Networks bid Extreme Networks, and then Moss bid the Aruba solution. The Aruba solution, while all of them are quality products, obviously they have different parts and pieces within their product set that made the Aruba non-compliant for what we were asking. So in that particular one, you'll see Delta Networks was our lowest qualified bid, and that will be the one we'll be recommending with the Extreme Networks. Now this is a different tool than what Novi has used in the past. Novi has been a Cisco shop for a number of years. In the switching world, they all do a good job. They all have enterprise customers, telecom, big corporations, hospitals, school districts. They can all do what we're asking to a certain degree. In this particular one, Extreme came in as the lowest qualified bid that we're recommending for what we were asking, the design, the product, the quality and assurance that we see over the next 5 years. When you look at the wireless networking electronics, again, we had 3 bid responses, the same 3 manufacturers with the same 3 vendors. 2 of those base bids were non-compliant. So basically, they did not offer us what we were asking for in a network, wireless network, which is the access points that hang on the ceiling, and the back-end control systems that allow us to connect all of those Chromebooks, those 6,500 Chromebooks, and that 30 in every classroom back to our wireless access points. Cisco Meraki offered us the best and most compliant solution, and that'll be our recommendation moving forward. The UPSs, we had 2 bids. They were both compliant. The difference here is we are recommending Delta Networks because we're already working with them. For the nominal cost difference that you see there on this particular project, the UPSs are the battery backups that keep all of our equipment running during a power outage or a power blip. And we have those in every closet, and we're adding battery packs to extend the run time to keep our phone systems or our PA systems, everything that's powered through the network running. We're already going to be, if the board approves, we will already be working with Delta Networks. So it means less downtime over the installation period and less vendors to manage throughout the summer project, which this is a major summer project for us. It involves every closet, every school building. in the district. So we're recommending that we go with Delta Networks. We've done business with both Intercom TSG, across the county, and Delta Networks, and use the Extreme and Meraki products throughout the county, as well as the cyber power. So I'd be happy to entertain any specific questions that the board may have.
We look towards Mr. Bennett.
Well, I'm just curious, if I remember correctly, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought previously for a lot of the wireless access points, we were using Ubiquity products in the past, and that wasn't, looked
No.
like it. I mean,
Yeah, we're using Cisco.
Okay,
And our
so-
existing Cisco is no longer manufactured.
Okay. And for the wireless products, we're staying with Cisco.
It's the Meraki brand of Cisco.
Okay.
So it's a Cisco and Meraki are one company. What you're seeing is a lot of mergers and acquisitions through this market space. It's actually the Meraki product. Cisco owns that product.
Okay.
And that's what many of the schools are implementing. Meraki's been an innovative company, and we've used it, like I said, across the county. That's been our go-to product from a support model since we put them in Pontiac in 2016. We were our first district.
Well, certainly, I know there's, I joked around with Anthony, there's probably a need for upgraded UPS in some of our closets, because every once in a while, when I walk down one of the hallways in the high school and I pass one of the closets, I can hear some of them beeping and going off, which basically tells us that, probably the battery is malfunctioning at that point, probably needs to be replaced.
Yeah, this is an expansion and a replacement, so we're planning for the new Meadows building and additional closets, but really a lot of this is an expansion to our existing to give us longer run time. So as we put more things on the network, such as our PA systems, our phone systems, and those become life safety things, we want to have longer run time. So should we have a power outage and need to use those?
Mrs. Rooney?
Extreme Networks, very familiar with. I'm glad we're going with that product. It's a great product. The one with the wireless electronics, why didn't Extreme, why didn't they qualify? Why didn't Delta qualify with the Extreme? I know they've acquired quite a few wireless.
They bid a different model access point, and when we asked them to true them up against, what we asked for. So like I said, they kind of gave us the Chevy, and we were looking for something a little bit more robust to carry us through, knowing we had the density across the district, and we've invested in one-to-one. We have 30-plus students in a classroom. We wanted better throughput through our access points, and we also wanted some expandability in there. They made some assumptions in reading our bid response and realized when they submitted that bid, they weren't compliant. So when they gave us the revised cost estimate, they were substantially higher than the Meraki. And then taking a look at that as well, because we did some analysis of why not do a single vendor, but we have a comfort and training level with both the products. So for the cost differential, it didn't make sense just to go with a single vendor out of convenience on this particular one, when Meraki's been able to deliver and run on Extreme Networks in other districts and be very robust.
Okay.
So, if I understand what you just said, part of what you just said was we won't be expecting any compatibility issues between the Meraki and the Extreme Networks.
We don't anticipate any. We've reviewed it, and we have it implemented in several districts across the county in our field model, where we run current Extreme switching and Meraki wireless. So we haven't had any problems there that we haven't been able to resolve.
Okay, because last time we talked about some of this, I thought we were worried about some compatibility issues.
Sometimes there is some compatibility in different product lines, and we talked about that particularly with like the Aruba vendor, because we've never had that installed. So we talked about how that would be compatible with, say, our Cisco phone system versus that. Most of this networking is starting to converge a little bit, where you're getting a little bit more standards approach, and we're not seeing as much as we used to see. back years ago, you know, maybe when we did the last refresh, you saw some incompatibility issues.
Seeing no other questions? Did I catch you?
No, I realized the camera had come back. Sorry.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move on. Next thing on for information discussion is the 2022-2023, or actually, I'm sorry, 2022 site improvement project.
We're excited this evening to have SME here to kind of describe for the board what our site improvement project will be this summer. It's really a paving project that we're doing. And if you could introduce yourself to the board and kind of describe the project and the process that we went through to arrive at this bid.
Sure. Good evening, Superintendent Matthews and board members. My name is Keith Toro. I'm a professional engineer with SME Soil Materials Engineers. We've worked with Novi Community School District for many years on the infrastructure, essentially, to repair and replace various components throughout the district. So this year's project is one of the larger projects that we've had, and it encompasses replacing 19 separate pavement sections at 8 sites, and it was broken into 10 bid sections for public bid. So overall, there's almost 400,000 square feet of pavement replacement, sidewalk repairs and replacements, catch basin repairs, and drainage improvements throughout the district. And I'm not sure if you noticed walking into the meeting tonight, if you looked at the ESB parking lot here, that is certainly one of the ones on the list. So in past repair years, we've actually limited the amount of sort of our Band-Aid type repairs, knowing that some of these lots were on their way to failure. A Band-Aid, you know, we did what we needed to do for safety. For example, trip hazards and something you might lose a small car in. But we knew that this eventually was going to get, some of these sections were going to get replaced in their entirety. So we were able to save a little bit of money in the past to save up for these total replacement projects. So we did an evaluation last winter and this spring, and we were able to determine which of the pavement sections throughout the district needed this replacement. We were able to put together a design package, send that out to bid. We had 4 respondents, bidders, and they were all in line with the engineer's estimate of what the cost should be. And we also had some alternates available for these bidders to bid on as well. Examples of an alternate would be, instead of replacing, say, every other flag of sidewalk in a section, and we call it 50 shades of gray, where over the years we've replaced this and this and this, and the other ones are failing. It's just going to be a matter of time. So we'll just, you know what, just do the whole section at once. That way it's all going to maintain its aesthetics for years to come. So we have, the low bidder was Nagel Paving Company, and they're actually a Novi-based company, and we recommend that they receive the project for this summer.
We appreciate Mr. Toro being here. I'm sure that he found fascinating all the discussion that we had this evening, and there was no place else he would rather be this evening. But this comes to the board. This is a project that Mr. Toro worked with Mr. McIntyre and Mr. Dragoo to get the bid out, to review the bids, to identify the appropriate project for the district, and we really appreciate Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Dragoo, and Mr. Toro and their effort here, and so we bring this to the board for information and discussion tonight. And if the board has questions, either tonight or in the ensuing 2 weeks before the March 17th board meeting, we can certainly have Mr. Toro answer them tonight or answer them before you vote on it on March 17th.
Anybody have a question? Did we look at the new building?
Over at the Rohr Center? Was that part of the old Walsh College? That's our newest building in the district. Did we look at that parking lot?
We have not at this point. We did the initial evaluation just as that was coming into being, so that is certainly. So what we've done, what SME has done over the past 6, 7, 8 years is we have an inventory of all the pavement in Novi Community School District, and we go every few years, we go out and re-rate that. And we give it a visual rating between 1 and 10, so that way we're able to monitor the condition of all of that. So we have not added that, although that will be in a future evaluation for sure. And there's some drainage issues there as well that we're aware of.
Okay.
So if the board approves this on the 17th, we would get this bid out, or we would award the project and have this done primarily during the summer months. Is that right, Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, and we'll be working around summer school and summer feeding programs and those types of things.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Toro.
Thank you very much. This brings us to item D, or 2022-2023 NEA calendar. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you. Before we turn it over to Dr. Kinzer, you may wonder why this comes to the board, and the answer to that question is that this is one of the last remaining negotiated items that the teachers union has, and so this continues to be a negotiated item with the teachers union. So I will turn it over to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. So it is a mandatory subject to bargaining, and which means that we sit down with the teachers annually to take a look at next year's calendar. This year, Grat Dalton, our Uniserv director, Heather Burnside, and Matt Burry represented the teacher side. Jeff Dinkelman and I sat down with them and took a look at the calendar from this year, had some conversation about any particular issues that we might have with it. Really had no issues with it. Then we look at the Oakland schools common calendar for breaks for the next school year. We did notice that the winter break falls late next year. So the last school day prior to the winter break is December 23rd. Heather did some surveying of her members, and really the thought of keeping that made the most sense to them. We certainly agreed. So we went ahead and stayed true to the Oakland Schools Common Calendar. Essentially, this calendar is the identical calendar to this school year. There really are no changes. It's just corresponding dates that fall on the 22-23 calendar. So we have a good calendar. It's serving our purposes well. That said, we are going to have some conversation later in the spring to look at future calendars, just to explore whether there are things that we should think about. But not that would have any bearing on the 22-23 calendar. It would be for future years.
So if the board were to approve this at March 17th, we'd be able to communicate that to our community shortly after, and they would be able to start making plans for the 22-23 school year.
Nobody have any comments? I do. I don't like winter break. Honestly.
Yeah, well.
I talked to Dr. Matthews about this, and I feel that, especially as a parent, that having the week after New Year's off is a lot of work, trying to find things to occupy or people to watch the kids. Having the week before, if they were to move it to the 19th, that week off, and it gives teachers extra time to prepare for the holidays, and when New Year's is done, rather than just sitting on your laurels for an extra week, it you're back at it like most of the working professionals.
I will tell you that in order to vary from the Oakland Schools Common Calendar, we have to stay within a window that they receive a waiver for. So Oakland Schools applied for a waiver and received a 4-day variance. So we had the ability to vary from their calendar within 4 days on either end.
And many of the items that you identified, Mr. Cook, are items that Dr. Kinzer discussed with the NEA group, and they, as we have said, this is a negotiated item, and this is what we were able to negotiate with the NEA.
Well, I speak my mind.
Yes, you can.
Speak my piece.
And we appreciate it.
Clearly, we have to send Mr. Cook in negotiations.
Won't have any teachers.
I guess I would like also just to say that I do really appreciate the collaborative nature of these conversations that we have with the NEA. We really do view it from a problem-solving lens and see what we can come up with that's in the best interest of students. So I appreciate that.
Okay, let's move on to next item is committee reports. We had a couple of committee meetings since last
Over the last month.
Over the last month. So first one is the Finance Committee. Mrs. Hood.
Not much else to report. We met on February 10th, I think it was, and reviewed the budget that Mr. McIntyre reviewed with us 2 weeks ago, and then this evening. And talked about all the things that some of the questions that came up tonight about the lowered local revenue was from lowered gate admissions, et cetera. But had a good, robust conversation about the budget, and that was it. And we had, I'm sorry, one more thing. And we had one, what's the word I want?
Fleet?
Not
The word of the evening is fleet, so I can't fit it in.
the guest, we had one guest audience, thank you, one audience member comment, which was
A first.
really weird. So, thank you.
The comment was weird? or
No, the
just
comment was fine.
Just having somebody there.
Having somebody there was, and actually, they were there for the next committee.
I might trade committees if that.
Thank you.
Okay, curriculum committee,
That's me.
that's Mrs. Murphy.
Yeah, we did have a curriculum committee meeting on March 10th. It was very well attended.
February 10th.
Pardon? Oh, February 10th. Our next one is actually March 10th.
Correct.
But we had one on February 10th, and it was really well attended. I thought it lasted about 2.5 hours, but everyone that was in attendance, I think, stayed almost the whole time. I didn't see a lot of people getting up and moving, and I felt like it ended up being a really good meeting. It had the opportunity for people to feel heard, and it was a good discussion and lots of comments, and the presentation was on our social emotional learning, and I thought it was both educational, I think, for people there to hear what we're doing and what has been historical over time. Citizenship is what it was called back in my day. I kind of had forgotten that until they brought that up at the meeting, and I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, so it was overall, it was a really good meeting, and 2.5 hours later, we still have more work to do, but yeah, we're moving forward, and I felt like there was a lot of cohesion that was not expected at that meeting that came about as a result. People could see what we all have kind of in common, and what we can all stand behind and support, and that was, to me, incredibly refreshing in this day and age, so I thought it was a good meeting. So our next one is March 10th. We're still finalizing the agenda for that. That should be out. Hopefully, we can get that out by tomorrow. Okay?
Okay, that brings us to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. This can be anything under the purvey of the board. We can ask the green cards be filled out, and we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, let's get the time. DeJuan Woods, Berkshire Point. I have a second grader at Deerfield. I have to say, this has to be one of the probably greatest meetings, and I'm so sad that this place isn't filled. You have Principal Carter getting recognized with an award, national award. You have announcements around AP and IB and the success that we're having in our district around education, academics. You have Nissan supporting our Frog Force group with $5,000. You have us talking about technology, bringing in technology that students can access. This is what we're here for. This is why our kids are here. This is why we as parents love being in this district, because of all the hard work that's taking place with you all, and with the parents. So these parents are dedicated to. So I don't want to give them short shrift because they're here all the time. But I want to use this time to say this more. Coming from a university where we have a shortage of talent in this state, but we also have a diminishing birth rate. And so there's this intersection of now colleges, universities, companies, they're all in a desperate war for talent. And that's what we have in this community. I would venture to say that if we were to use our backgrounds, our alumni status for the universities that we're a part of, and we were to go back and ask them, how can you all help us prepare our students to be better college students when they come to your university? Or companies like ITC, Harman, Bosch, Kamau, the hospital systems, Kroger's headquarters in Michigan is located in Novi. How can you as a company help our students be better prepared for the jobs of the future so that you're able to
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I'll keep my remarks brief because of the hour this evening. Last week, I had the opportunity to chaperone and judge at this year's HOSA State Leadership Conference. Novi High School had 357 state qualifiers, which is a new record. At this conference, it was amazing to see. It was held up at the Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City, and I would walk around. Part of my responsibility was to monitor student behavior. And so I got to walk through and see our students, and they are amazing students. There are similar high schools to Novi that had 90 students at this state leadership conference. We had over 300 students there, and as I walked through, they were everywhere, and they were just tremendous. We had, at the State Leadership Conference, we had 148 students in the top 8 and 57 International Leadership Conference qualifiers. The International Leadership Conference will take place this June in Nashville, Tennessee, and we will have great representation from Novi High School there. Actually, after the conference, I got a text from a former colleague in another district who said she was just amazed at the Novi High School students. And I said, they are an amazing group. So we have our mask optional policy has now been in place for a week in the district, and overall things seem to be going well. I visited multiple schools this week, and what I see at those schools is a respectful attitude among the students and staff. And students and staff, both in mask and not in mask, and things seem to be going very well. There has been questions brought to my attention, and Dr. Weber, Dr. Kinzer, and Mr. McIntyre and I have had conversations about when is the appropriate time to bring parents back into our schools as volunteers and participants. and Dr. Weber is having a meaningful discussion with especially our elementary principals tomorrow. I'm sending out an email to our elementary principals that will direct them to give some guidance to our parents to get them back into the buildings in a meaningful and appropriate way. We will probably not have our mass concerts in the gyms at the elementary schools, for example, but we will be able to bring parents back in as volunteers in the media center, volunteers in classrooms. This is March's Reading Month. We're hopeful to have parents be able to come in and read to our students as well. But Dr. Weber will engage our principals in that conversation tomorrow, and I will send an email to our principals tomorrow that also outlines that we need to begin to bring our parents back into our buildings. Finally, our curriculum committee, as Ms. Murphy mentioned, is going to meet next week, and one of the topics of conversation will be a diversity audit or media center materials. This week we met with 3 of our media center specialists in the district and talked with them about how this would happen in our district, and so the information that Dr. Weber and I will bring to the curriculum committee next week will really be about what that curriculum or that diversity audit would look like and how it might proceed, and if the curriculum committee gives us a blessing, we'll move forward with that and then bring that conversation to the entire board. And that's my report this evening. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This brings us to the administrative reports. And if Mr. McIntyre or Dr. Kinzer want to get up before Mr. Weber talks and get a little extra sleep, that's fine.
I want to set the timer on me at 15.
Oh, is that me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Just want to circle back and keep the board in the loop. So the board gave us authorization to move forward with Series 2 of the 2019 bond, another $55 million. So Dr. Matthews and I participated in a phone call today. And Mr. Smith, we will be putting out an advertisement to allow local residents, if they want to participate, they'll be able to purchase some of these bonds as well. So we're moving forward with the process, and hopefully we'll have this thing wrapped up by May 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next meeting on March 17th, we will formally recognize our 2021-22 Teachers of the Year. So I'm looking forward to presenting them to you then. And our Support Person of the Year nomination window closed today. At least at last check, maybe 30 minutes before the deadline, I think we were at 7 nominees. So we'll be selecting the winner for that soon, and we will certainly be recognizing that person in the near future as well. I'll cede the rest of my time to Dr. Weber.
All right, so actually I'm going to ask Jeff Maas to come to the podium for just a second, and I'm going to put something on that podium that the camera can cue in on. So Jeff and I had the pleasure today of going to Fanuc Robotics. So Fanuc owns about 70% of the market share in global robotics. And at that visit, we also went with about 6 members from TMP, our architectural firm. And Fanuc was gracious enough to spend about 3 hours with us today. Wow. And really, we dug into what is next for the back end of our high school there, and we know that that's part of the bond program. But you often hear Maz speaking about things like switches and things like that, and I think not enough people know the gift that Jeff is to our district from an instructional standpoint and how technology is utilized for learning. So I just asked Jeff if he'd be kind enough, and he lives really, really far away, just to stay a few extra minutes to give the board his impression of what he saw today and how it connects. And I know Mary Ann's gonna get all this. She has deep Fanuc roots. But really, truly, if you've never been in a facility like this or seen what is really done with robots, you'll never see the world the same way again. From food handling to the clothing we wear, the shoes we wear, the vehicles we drive, on. But the most exciting thing to me is the opportunity to bring these things to Novi High School, CNC mills, CNC lathes, robotic certification programs, and to do it with a company that's based in Michigan and only 30 minutes away. So Jeff, what did you take from today that the board might be interested in hearing as we look at, and the community? And I did not pay this parent back here $5 to tee us up. I did not.
So I think that's a great point. As the parents said, we're looking at opportunities for our students to prepare them for their future, either in the workforce or in education or whatever it is. And what the exciting thing of going to FANUC today was seeing an industry and a company that's really invested in education. They are looking at the next generation workforce, realizing there's this shortage of qualified candidates to come in and do the work that they're trying to prepare and create across, as Dr. Weber said, every industry. So you look at where their robots are sitting and the things that we take for granted on a daily basis. They're engineering robots to automate those processes and not replace jobs, but create new jobs and efficiencies. And it was really exciting to see what the potential could be in Novi and really infusing this into some of our existing programs. And I work closely, so for those of you who don't know, I'm a former elementary principal, special education teacher who went into technology. So my passion is on the learning side. I can talk switches, speeds, devices, but I get really excited when we talk about what to do with that stuff and what opportunities it provides. And when I get an opportunity to go with, districts and talk about this or talk with our Oakland schools, career and technical education consultants who built the STEMI, which is coming out to districts, that's the exciting piece of education. And those are the pieces that we have to figure out how to capture and enlighten our kids so when they go off to college or they leave high school, that first year or those 5 years in college that they're spending aren't just discovery, and they're coming out with $150,000 of debt, and they still don't know what they want to do. And having opportunities to talk to FANUC and other companies, they see this opportunity to help schools open up opportunities for students to think about what it might be. And I talked to, prior to this meeting, I talked to one of our STEMI consultants, and he phrased it really well. We want opportunities to explore and expose kids to the what if and the what could be. We want to spark their interest, and we want learning agility. So because you want to be an engineer, doesn't mean you should not take a shop class, or you should not take a robotics class, because that makes you a better engineer if you could understand what the people are doing. And that is what I saw today in going through this FANUC tour and seeing the equipment. But not only the equipment, they've thought about the curriculum because they realize the same shortage they're having on the robotic side, we're having on qualified CTE educators. So they want to help prepare a talented math teacher who has a passion and can understand to be a robotics teacher or a CNC teacher and connect those two. And that's sometimes where we forget about that connection in learning. So it was really exciting to have that conversation, but it was even more exciting to have the conversation with the architects who they started to light up as they saw some of the potential. They saw the space that we have allocated, but they saw the surrounding spaces of what we could really do over the next several years. This is like the seed opportunity for us to think about how we take that high school curriculum, how we take the IB, how we take traditional classes and converge that into new opportunities, link it to the incubator class, link it to IB, and really engage those students, whether you want to be a welder or a mechanic, you need to have some technical knowledge. And as we talk today, we have some traditional shop classes where they build things and they repair cars and they do that. But what if they go work for Roush Automotive on a race car team? They need to know how to use a CNC machine and a 3D printer and a laser cutter to fabricate parts for those race cars because they're not going to be able to fly them always in. That's the technology that we see in our next generation, and that's the connectivity. So I thank you for the opportunity. I think you have a tremendous opportunity here to leverage the community's investment in this bond and really think about this space and continue to grow it down the road. So.
And sincerely, thank you, Jeff. And if you could put that cobot that I put up there, just have the board take a look at it. This is one of their newest pieces of technology. And it's a robot that you actually can manipulate in place with your hands and then program it. But you could actually very quickly teach it to arc weld. You don't need to bolt it onto the floor and so on. And what Jeff was talking about is really this commingling of all these different pieces. Jeff, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So we'll have more discussions about that, but it was such an exciting day. Couldn't help but take a few minutes to share that with you. Truly amazing. Tomorrow we have kindergarten through 6th grade professional development. Kindergarten 1st, 2nd, 5th grade will be working on advanced math recovery. 3rd and 4th grade, Dr. Kinzer will be there with us as well. We're doing small group instruction, all of our 3rd and 4th grade teachers, our ELD staff, our intervention staff, and we're gonna get together and really focus upon how do we reach as many learners as we possibly can using small group instruction pieces. 6th grade will be working on understanding by design. Our K-6 specials, that'll be physical education, art, media specialists, music, band, choir, orchestra. They've been working all year on aligning their curriculum. On Monday, our 7-12 will be doing understanding by design throughout the district as well. And a special thanks to our instructional coaches who throughout this entire year have really helped us carry our professional development approach based on, of course, our Michigan Continuous Improvement Plan. So thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you for staying on that. And any questions you might have for myself or Jeff, even down the road on the robotics piece, I saw a lot of heads nodding. Please ask, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weber.
You're welcome.
This brings us to board communication. Does anybody have anything where they participated or want to say, or?
I'll just, as I was reading through my prevention magazine, yes, I'm getting old. I came across this Let's Unplug. And I don't know if you guys realize this, that the first Friday in March is designated as a National Day of Unplugging. Challenge yourself to stay away from your devices for a longer period of time than you normally do. Designate all meals as free of devices, TV included, or power down your work computer as soon as you're off the clock to avoid checking emails into the night. So I'll be up to midnight checking my emails so I can do this tomorrow. Take a digital break can reduce stress and help us become more mindful and active. So there you go. Tomorrow, just don't use your computer. But try it.
It's a good reminder, Marion.
Yeah, well, not that I have a mealtime anymore, but if I did, I would not look at my phone, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Rowe. Is there anybody else? Mrs. Hood?
Just a quick thing. So I saw on Twitter, I don't know where else Mr. Asher posted it. We just finished up Black History Month, and this month is Women's History Month.
It is.
And Mr. Asher had a Mr. Rogers-like presentation, adorable to his kids, talking about Seneca Falls, New York, the birthplace of the women's rights movement. It was, the first convention was in 1848, 300 men and women, and they discussed the rights of women who at that time were darn near second-class citizens. I don't mean to look at you. And his point was, it started with 300 people at this convention and what a small group of people can do. So I did a little Googling on that, and in 1971, which is within many of our lifetimes, in 1971, a woman could not have her own bank account. I'll look at Mary Ann.
I know, I can't believe that.
I know. Could not have a credit card. And it is, that to me is shocking. It is offensive. And I am glad that we have made progress. I I think in that context, it made me think of Mrs. Carter, our wonderful principal, and how we can expect and appreciate all the things that women have accomplished and will be accomplishing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Anybody else?
I'm curious why Seneca Falls?
I don't know.
You know, that's where A Wonderful Life was filmed.
Oh?
So I don't know if those are connected, but, you know, life is more wonderful for us now. Since then.
Indeed.
And truly, we have a lot of great women in this district that do contribute a lot. I know we are all thrilled for Mrs. Carter, and I don't know how they decide the national, at the national level. But boy, that would be awesome. This is really awesome. That would even be awesomer. That's not a word, but I'm using it as one.
Obstacle course through a high school hallway. Okay. I'm actually going to ask Dr. Weber to repeat something he said last Monday on some visitors that we had to the district from a private school.
Oh, sure, thanks, thank you.
I think it's very, very important and very, it's kind of a celebration.
It is, thank you, Acting President Cook, I really appreciate that, I do. So Monday, we had two people fly in from Houston. They worked for a private school, and they found us through searching, and they want to emulate our STEM program. They were really intrigued with what we were doing from a K through 6 standpoint especially, the curiosity kits in our elementary schools, the robotics program in 6th grade, the microbits in 5th grade. Principal Bricky hosted them for the whole day, took them around the district, took them to the high school, I believe took them to elementary schools to meet with our media specialist. And I think it's exceptionally flattering when people seek you out of nowhere, actually fly to come see you, and are really excited about the work that we're doing for kids. So thank you for that. And I want to thank Principal Bricky as well for hosting our guests from Houston. And thank you, Paul, for recognizing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting us know. If there are no other comments, Tom's favorite time.
Would you like to make a motion?
Dude, make
Sure.
a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Smith, supported by Mrs. Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Nobody, okay. We now adjourn.
Thank you, Paul.
Let me buy you a
Fuzzy water, get away.
Sorry, Tom.